Welcome to the show, amigos. We have a great guest lined up. Joining us, we have Seema of the Bollywood Lawyer podcast. You have to check that podcast out. She is currently covering a very interesting case. Now, if you're into real life drama, it doesn't get any better than the case that she is currently covering. It's a case of this young woman, Tyra Patterson. She was convicted at a very young age. She was about 18 years old, and she's been in prison for 22 years for a crime that she did not commit. Now, there's tons and tons of evidence. She's gone back and interviewed the people that were with her on that day. She's also interviewed the prosecutor, the defense attorneys, and she's dug up so much information. It's super interesting. Make sure you check that out over at BollywoodLawyer.com. But wait, there's more. We also talked about politics, about our president-elect. We talked about relationships, about marriage, about kids, about a whole host of things. And Seema is very, very opinionated. She is very interesting. She is by far one of my favorite guests ever on the podcast. So you make sure you stick around. You do not want to be left out.
From A1 Studios in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, New York. This is the Rob Aguilar Show.
I'm excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Because I find you very interesting. A lot of the things that you work on, your work as a criminal defense lawyer, I mean, that's got to be really exciting. I mean, the kind of cases you can probably, I don't know if you can talk about, but the kind of things.
Yeah, everything is public record. People always say, can you talk about it? I'm like, just go to the courthouse and walk in any room. You can talk about it. It's public record.
And some of the things that you've seen, and then
a lot of dead bodies, yes. Lots of dead bodies.
And I came across the Tyra Patterson case that you're covering on your podcast, which brings me to a kind of thing that I've always had growing up in Brooklyn about not trusting cops. I think it was on the first episode when you talked about she was, I guess, maybe a witness to the crime or involved in the whole scenario.
Right.
And then the cops go to her house and they just kind of say, we want to talk to you.
Right.
You were there. Can you help us out? And she had great intentions. She just wanted to go there and help.
Of course.
And then she gets charged.
Because she was raised thinking that the cops are there to help her. And by no means am I do a lot of work for the NYPD, so I love cops. And and I think it's very individualistic, the way a police officer behaves and trained and what era we're in policing. But in her case, she was with this group of people. But when this group decided to go and commit a robbery, at that point, Tyra Patterson and her friend Rebecca Stidham were away from the group, physically away from the group, looking at the group. And then Tyra put herself, almost instigated herself into the situation to end the situation. She wanted the people who were actually committing the robbery to stop, and they didn't. And then without any other options left, she and Rebecca were like, okay, let's get out of here. We're not going to be able to stop this crime. It's time to go. They turn around to leave. And at some point, two things. Number one is she did pick up a necklace off the ground, a necklace that was later connected to one of the victims in the vehicle. But the second thing, and the most important thing, is that Tyra and Becca were a considerable distance away from the vehicle when the shot rang out. So she was not even at the scene. She spoke to the police officers. I guess at one point she didn't say what they wanted to hear. Then she later said what they wanted to hear, but what they wanted to hear in order to charge her. And that's where things fell.
So they were just more concerned with trying to find someone to point the finger at?
To this day, and again, it's not like I've been involved in the case for 22 years, but now I feel I'm very, very much involved in the case. In the last 30 minutes, her attorney's been texting me for the next episode coming up. I don't understand why Rebecca and Tyra were literally glued at the hip from the beginning to the end, and the cops never intended to charge Becca, never did charge Becca. But Tyra went through this entire scenario where she was questioned and re-questioned and videotaped and then eventually charged and then finally convicted after trial. I don't understand. I don't know why Tyra and not Becca. I don't know. I don't know if this is an issue, but people have speculated that Becca was a white girl, Tyra's biracial. I don't know.
Yeah, because just hearing episode 1 and 2, I feel like she got railroaded, like totally railroaded.
Yeah. Which
solidifies this thing with not trusting the police. I have friends that I grew up with in Brooklyn.
Where did you grow up in Brooklyn?
I grew up in Sunset Park.
Oh, okay.
And I still live in Sunset Park. I have 5 friends, and 5 dudes that I grew up with, and they became cops. 2 of them are the nicest guys you'll ever meet, and they hate the job.
They hate the job.
They
Why?
hate the job because
now they hate the job.
Well, no, from day one.
Okay.
So one of my friends became a cop in his early 20s, and his thing was, I'll do 20 years and I'll retire. Right. So he got in early.
Yeah, and then he's retired by 40. Wouldn't that be nice?
Well, he retired. So he's like 2 years older than me. So he's like 45, 46. So, but he hated the job every day. Like, he just wasn't happy with the things that, everyday tasks that he had to do. But he was like the nicest guy, right? The other guy quit after like 5 years. He says, this isn't for me.
Wow.
But these are like guys that, I can't explain to you how nice these guys, these are just like really nice guys.
Okay, it surprises me because, so I am a former Bronx DA, where you're day in and day out with police officers. Mm-hmm. And that was 18 years ago. So the climate then, I thought, was more accepting of police officers and put them more in adoration type of a climate, as opposed to now where people will just disparage police officers, practically spit on police officers. It's the lowest of the low of the profession. So I am surprised that you say that.
And the other 3 who love the job are the 3 biggest pricks from our little group.
Well, maybe that's why.
So my thing was, they were pricks growing up. You know, they're the kids that hung out on the block, and we all hung out. And but they were pricks. When we get together every so often and I see them, they all moved to Staten Island. For some reason, cops in New York City gravitate to Staten Island.
Well, you know, Staten Island is just allegedly very racist.
Well, I call Staten Island the dirty south of New York City, like the deep south of New York City. So, but anyway, these guys were pricks growing up. And it almost seems like, I don't know if it's something about the type of profile when they're recruiting.
So you're almost saying that they gravitate towards these jobs.
I guess, because they fit it right in. They moved up within the ranks, but they don't stop being pricks. I can't explain it. They're the same pricks growing up, and now they're just pricks with guns in a badge. I mean, I get along with them. You know, we kid around, we talk. Right. But there's always this like douchebag element to them,
like egoistic type of,
like that, like, well, you know, like tough guy, like, you know.
I think there are some jobs where they have these god complexes, whether lawyers, male lawyers, worst, doctors, horrible, and NYPD. I mean, NYPD, it's not like any other police department in this country. It is iconic, and up until recently, for good reasons, as opposed to the LAPD, which was just renowned for being racist from, the 60s.
Sure.
So
I always kind of felt that maybe that when they recruit, they look for a specific type of individual.
I think they did back then. I think they were more selective back then, so they could look at something like personality. Now, it seems that the NYPD is having a very difficult time recruiting. I heard there are radio advertising for NYPD, and some of the officers I've seen, they're just so young.
Yeah.
They're so young with guns.
And I think the pay's not that great either to begin with.
No, but the benefits are good. And listen, if you're a city kid or somebody in the area who doesn't want to go to college, doesn't want to have to get an advanced degree, you have good benefits, your family's maybe police or military, it's a good job.
I mean, it's pretty secure.
Right.
You'd have to do something. I mean, I was going to say you'd have to kill someone to get fired, but
not really. You could kill someone and keep your job,
and keep your job. Yeah, because I mean, and I guess more so now we see a lot of it with people and their phones and recording cops and stuff like that. But I just don't trust them. I'll give you an example. And this actually happened a couple of weeks ago, and it was all over TV. And it happened right in front of my house. I have security cameras all around my house. and they were looking for a suspect who left the vehicle right on my driveway and then took off.
Oh my God.
So the cops knock on my door and they're like, we need to come in and get footage. And I'm like, hold on, what do you mean you need to come in? And there's helicopters. It was a whole big scene. So he's telling me that he needs to come in and get access to my security machine to get the videotape. And I said, well, I'll be more than happy to help you, but you're not coming in and you're not touching my equipment. The detective had a problem with that. So there was a uniformed officer right next to him, and he goes, get his name and get his date of birth. I said, what do you need my date of birth for? You're coming to me for help.
Right, but it's also because it's exigent circumstances. So when in an emergency situation, they have the right to do that. It's an emergency.
Yeah.
So if someone's life is at jeopardy, if someone's safety is at jeopardy, if their safety is at jeopardy, if they're in a situation where evidence could be destroyed, if it's not recovered right away, they have the right to do that.
Well, I told him, you can't come in. I'm not going to.
And then what happened?
He backed off. And I said, I'll see if it recorded. I go, it's motion activated. If it recorded it, I'll put it on a drive for you, and you can take it. So I went in and figured it out and then gave him the thing.
Okay.
I said, I don't mind cooperating, but you're not coming into my house and thinking that you're going to touch my equipment and mess around with the computer. Right. It's just not, he goes, oh, I know how to work it. I said, no, I'm sorry. You can't. So they come back the next day and said, could you come down to I don't know where he wanted me to come down.
Precinct?
Yeah, maybe. Because I was in the middle of so many things. I was running out of the house. So he said, so you can validate to the DA that you gave us the tape and we didn't fabricate.
Did they want you to come to the DA's office or
something like that? Someone signed. I said, I'm heading off to an appointment. You just can't drop in and expect me to run off with. I can't. He goes, otherwise, they might let this guy out, and we need to say that.
It was probably for a grand jury.
But this is like 2 days later, I think.
Yeah, that's grand jury. So it's within 7 days.
So he said to validate that we didn't fabricate this tape.
So it's just evidence, like a chain of custody.
Right. So I'm like, 3 days ago, I heard one of your episodes. Oh. And I'm like, I'm not going down nowhere with these guys.
Oh, great. I'm glad I'm promoting obstruction of justice.
So he said, oh, well, I said, listen, I gave you the tape. I'm sure there's technology available that can say, it's got metadata on there and all that stuff.
You need a live witness.
So I was like,
he's absolutely right. You need a live witness because if I take this paper bag and hand it to you and you try to get it into evidence, then you have to say, where'd you get it from? Right. The person who handed it to you has to testify or some other or stipulation. Yeah. But there has to be that chain of custody to get evidence in.
Yeah, maybe it's a Brooklyn thing, but I just don't trust them at all. So then he's like, well, then let me come in and I can view the tape and then can validate that it wasn't fabricated or something like that.
Right. Okay.
I don't know if that's accurate or not, if they can do that.
That kind of makes sense. Okay.
So then I said, it's 3 days later now. I have to go back and look at the timestamp. It's going to take an hour or so, and I got to go. He went on his way. He wasn't happy, but I was like, I don't have time for this. I'm sorry.
Oh, my God. I hope you didn't free the criminal.
I don't think so. I mean, it was this woman who ran in for coffee. It was all over the news. It was like 2-3 weekends ago. She ran into Dunkin' Donuts to get some coffee, left her 3-month-old in the back of her SUV.
Oh, yeah.
She left it running.
Yeah.
And then, so some guy jumped in the car and wanted to steal the car.
Yes. And then he dropped the kid off somewhere.
Right.
Oh,
so I guess he didn't realize that there was a kid in the back.
Right.
Right. It was 3-month-old. So in the video, he parks right in front of my driveway, lowers all the windows.
This is a crazy coincidence.
Lowers all the windows and then leaves the sidewalk side door open and then just runs off.
Wait, did you see the baby?
I couldn't see the baby in the video.
Wait, the baby's okay?
Yeah. So he left the baby in the car. The cops were, I guess, onto him because maybe there was a chase or something.
Well, she probably called 911
she called 911
right away, so that's probably why they tracked the car down. Oh, my God, that poor kid.
And, but he was unharmed. He drove for like 11 miles, they said.
Right, Staten Island to Sunset Park. Right.
I see a car pull in.
Oh, my God.
All the windows come down. And then he comes around the back side of the car, opens the right passenger side door, and leaves it open with all the windows down, and then leaves. And then, like, a minute later, all the cop cars surround the vehicle, but he's gone by then. So,
great story. I can't believe you were a part of it.
Well,
no, I do remember from the news. Very much so.
Obviously not on purpose.
I can't believe it was that case.
Yeah. So, but they got the guy.
Right.
And he was.
But it was definitely a big local news case.
Yeah.
Because of the friggin' kid.
Right. But I mean, who leaves a kid in the car with the car running. I mean,
yeah, well, that's true. That's true.
I think that's stupid. You know, I don't know. I would never do anything like that. But so we go into kids now. I heard you
my proposed legislation for licenses to have children.
No, not that one.
Which obviously the Dunkin' Donuts story
not that
corroborates
one,
that.
But another interesting thing it was kind of like a rant.
Yeah.
I want to say about marriage.
Yes.
And what's
so I feel very strongly on my opposition to the institution of marriage, and I think it's shocking how populated this planet is, how diverse this planet is, yet the greatest commonality that the human population has is this wanting to get married. I don't understand it. I don't understand how people haven't evolved more, because now I still see people in their 20s getting married.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, what are you doing? Because I understand, you know, so I think you and I are close in age. So maybe back when we were in our 20s, we could see it more, or even our 30s, people are getting married. But now it's 2016 and there are kids in their 20s, like early 20s, getting married.
But not in New York, though, or in like major cities. That's got to be like...
I agree. It's not as much in New York, but right. In New York, 45 is 25. I mean, who are we kidding? Right. but still, there's just so many issues with respect to freedom, with respect to settling, with respect to ambition. There are all these, I think, very important parts of the human experience that people are neglecting, and instead saying, okay, I'm going to get married. And I don't understand why people don't realize that when you get into an institution such as marriage, there is a tremendous loss of freedom. And there's just no way around it. Nobody can have it all. And you can have, people who have money have the ability to have more than, let's say, the rest of us, right? Because they have people to take care of their kids, or people to clean their house, or do their dishes, or drive them places, right? So they have that, convenience where they can make the job work. But still, if you're truly an ambitious person, I believe the most ambitious people would not get married because you're too busy working. You're too busy working and strategizing and plotting and studying and trying to better yourself instead of, I don't know, like eating ice cream and watching movies. Like what? I don't understand why people don't get that. Yeah. Like all the time that is wasted in a relationship, you could be going to the gym. I don't know. That's just one example.
So what about those people that say, well, I'm lonely and I just feel like I need to have someone with me?
I think that's legitimate. I don't get it. I don't understand. I think you have to just get over it.
Yeah, because
I think loneliness is that's smart that you say that, because I think loneliness is the problem. I think people are they get so lonely. That's one reason they settle, and that's one reason they get married. It's not because they're in love with that person or because that person helps them rise up and be better, right. But it's in fact because they're lonely. I think that's just a manufactured emotion, loneliness. If you're doing something productive, you're not going to be lonely. If you're busy, you're not lonely. If you're working, you're not lonely. If you're studying, you're not lonely. I don't know. It's like that Oprah Winfrey bull crap.
So could it be something to do with like people maybe not having confidence? Maybe because if you're doing all these other things, I don't think when you're looking for a partner or for a wife or for whatever, you don't need them to fulfill anything in your life. You should be kind of fulfilled though on your own, I think, right?
Absolutely. I think that's very smart, and I think that's a great point that people do not see, and maybe you and I see that because we're more mature. But I think that most. And, I can say most of my friends are men, but as a woman, I can see how women behave. And I feel that that's exactly it. Nobody takes the time to say, I want to gain insight into myself, figure out what I want, be a fulfilled person, and then look for a partner. Because everyone's too worried that somebody's going to they're going to miss out.
On the right person kind of thing?
Right.
Yeah, because you shouldn't
and
rely
desperate.
because I don't think you should rely on someone else for your happiness, right? I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I think that's what people do.
Everybody does that.
And then that's why they end up also divorced and then married 3-4 times.
Right. And then they don't learn after the first time. So I used to always think, I mean, I've always had more male friends because I felt like men were more ambitious than women. I was having dinner with a very successful lawyer and a very successful doctor. And they were both stunning women, very successful, television personalities, whatever. The entire dinner, they're talking about men. I wanted to take the fork and stab myself in the eye. I couldn't believe I'm around these gorgeous, successful, rich. I mean, they're both tons of money. Mm-hmm. I'm poor and I'm happy. And they have everything. And they're just obsessing over their predicaments. This is it. This is the only way they're going to find happiness. So I had thought when I was younger that men were more ambitious and men were more goal-oriented. But lately, I don't feel that way either, because some of the men that I'm friends with who are just incredibly smart and successful, they either are dating total doofuses, and I don't know why it's this thing where they don't date the women who are on their level.
I see a lot of that.
And this is so interesting. And I'll ask you what you think. So I have this group, and, we talk to each other about career and, what are we going to do next and strategize and whatever. And that's why I think, for me, I like keeping this group platonic because it's all about business. But friendship, it's all intermingled. But their women are all like barmaids.
It's low-hanging fruit. You don't have to work that hard.
But don't you want a partner you can talk to things? Like, why are you coming to me and asking me what you should do with your life? Talk to your girlfriend.
Right. See, one of the things personally that I find super attractive in women is intelligence. I have to be able to conversate about many different things. Or maybe there's something that you can show me that I don't know about, because I like to learn. I like to get to know people. And so when I worked on Wall Street, a lot of those dudes dated porn stars. It was nuts. It was disgusting,
Well, it's okay. Listen, it's okay if it's just for fun and for sex.
Yeah.
That's fine.
But it's just...
But not to, live with or marry.
No. Like we were saying before with Tom, when I bring my own headphones to every recording session, then I go. I'm a huge germaphobe. So, these dudes are banging, like, porn stars, like, all the time. Like, this is what they did. And I was like, I couldn't...
Only because you're a germaphobe, not because there's any moral problem.
Right. No. Yeah. No.
Porn stars.
Right. No. It's just, you
just have your sanitizer for your body.
So it was easy. That's what I got from it. I heard a guy once say, I work at work. I shouldn't have to work at a relationship.
I think that's a good point.
That was his justification for going.
But he's also not someone who wants to become the president or wants to own a company or wants to be an author. Whatever. He doesn't want to save the world, find the cure for cancer, whatever. He's not someone who's ambitious. I think specifically marriage is not for the highly ambitious. That's what I think.
So do you think people that get married, there's something wrong with them?
I do. I think people who get married are insecure. I don't know what the insecurity is. It's either they're insecure because they don't like to be alone. They're insecure because they don't want to be independent. I think they're insecure because they need someone to give them confidence. Like the guy with the low-hanging fruit, right?
Yeah.
He wants the girl to constantly be able to say, you're so smart, you're so this, you're so that. But with women, I think you're going to find this interesting. So I've come up with a theory that, how women always say they want to have kids? Mm-hmm. They don't want to have kids. No, there's no way I'm the only person who doesn't want to have kids. Because, okay, so number one, there's people who always said to me, oh, there's plenty of people who don't want to have kids. You're not alone. All of those people who didn't want to have kids, they all have kids now. Because everybody just sucks it up and settles and ends up having kids. Okay, fine. I think there are some people who genuinely want the experience of being a parent. My mother was certainly one of them, or is one of them. Well, now she may rethink the whole thing, but since,
Sure.
At the time when she had me, she was. But
do you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have a younger sister, and my mother very much wanted kids, and is a great mother, and I do think there are. But in this day and age, the women in my generation, a little younger, a little older, I don't think a lot of them want kids. I think they don't want to work. And the only way they can get out of working is to have a kid.
But that's work too.
Not if you have money. I mean, listen, a lot of women, they just don't want to be on that ladder. They don't want to have to work hard in that sense. I do think having kids, listen, I would rather work in like a morgue than have children and take care of them. Are you kidding me? I definitely think having kids work. I would
it's a ton of
never.
work.
Oh, I could never do it. I would kill myself. Kill. Like death. No way would I be able to sit all day watching Dora the Friggin' Explorer with a child and feeding it. And I like babies. I like babies because they don't, they're just cute and they don't
they're
talk.
easy.
So they're great.
My 6-month-old is a breeze.
Oh God, I'm like, this is like me ranting and just insulting everything about your life, isn't it? That's why you have me on. You're like, I want to hear about everything wrong with my life.
No, not at all. I mean, because I agree with you. I think marriage is not for everyone. I have 2 younger brothers. My middle brother, he is 39, and I think he'll never get married either. My younger brother is in his late 20s, and I don't think, he's just having fun too. They like having fun. I was like that in my 20s, in my 30s, but it's almost like that was like a stage, maybe.
Right.
So,
and you were in New York, and your brothers were in New York.
Yeah. So,
how long have you been married?
6 years, actually.
So you got married at what?
I was 38.
Yeah, that's older.
I became a dad when I turned 40.
And what does your wife do?
So she
works in a bar. She's a barmaid.
No, so like I was saying before, like
she's a porn star.
Yeah, she's a porn star.
She's a very clean porn star. She's like a hypoallergenic,
right.
Organic, lubricant porn star.
Right.
Yeah, what does she do?
Like I was saying before, I'm really attracted to intelligence.
Smart, right.
She double majored, double minored in sociology and anthropology. She owns her own business.
Oh.
So she's a wedding and event planner.
Oh, wow. Fun.
And she's in the industry. And,
oh, my God. Is she like Jennifer Lopez on the movie and she bets on people making it?
That's part of our conversation when we
so fun.
When we get together at night, like, when we're done with the kids and work and everything. She can tell who's going to make it and who's not.
I bet she can. And just to be clear, I do think there are couples who are on the same level, such as you and your wife. And I do think there are, but there's just not that many. I am saying I do not see that many married couples who are partners intellectually.
I think that's part of how you make a relationship work. That you find maybe someone who's your equal, that you have common goals. But you said something about freedom. So the person that you're with should not restrain you from being and doing the things that you want to do that make you happy outside of the relationship.
First of all, everything you're saying is correct, but it's also because that's what you wanted. See, what I'm saying is if you have the guy who is the CEO of the company, but he just wants a porn star or whatever, then that's what he's going to get. But if you're you and you want someone on your intellectual level, then that's what you're going to get. And if the freedom issue is, okay, so number one, yes, that is a sign when, let's say, you want to do something and your partner's not going to let you do it or stand in your way or whatever, then yeah, you should not be in that relationship. No. But not many people have that insight to get out. Another thing is, listen, if you have a family, it's not about your partner or your child holding you back. You're a human being, right? Like right now, I'm not going to say, but I'm saying, like, God forbid, somebody got sick and we had to go, we have to go. And that's the problem. Literally 2 days ago, I had a friend who was like in a very high level competition and she had a family emergency and she had to leave the competition. So it was like status, money, all of these factors that could really have changed her life and her career. She left because a family member was sick. So that's my point. I think you have to be, and I'll give you an example. I was in the DA's office and I just started, I was on trial, and I was young. I was like 25, 26. And my dad had a heart attack. And I was like, I'm not taking the day off. Yeah, and 25 is pretty young he didn't die then. But the point is, because my parents are my parents and they know me, they did not expect me to come. They were like, we know she's not taking the day off. She's a maniac. Like, I couldn't get the words. I couldn't even tell my supervisor. My dad had a heart attack. And it was the first time anybody in our family has ever been seriously sick. It was, when you're in a family that, whatever, I mean, nobody's had some kind of serious illness. And I was in New York, they're in Virginia. They had to fly him in a helicopter to some D.C. center. It was like all very dramatic. And I was like, all right, I'll see you Saturday morning. I'm not taking the day off. It's not happening. And my parents never held that against me because they know I'm a maniac and work is always going to come first. But it's very hard to find people like that.
Well, but also, they didn't make you feel guilty for not going.
No, because they're the ones who raised me like this. But the work ethic came from them.
Right. I know with my parents,
from Mexico,
immigrant parents, they understand that.
Yeah, totally immigrant mentality. Totally, I agree with you.
You got to work.
I agree with you. Yeah, and Mexicans have like an incredible work ethic. It's unbelievable. You guys work a lot.
I tell my wife
and
friends,
drink, which I like. That's why I like Mexicans. They drink and they work a lot.
We built the pyramids. Right. Engineers today can't figure out how that was put together. If I was in that situation, they wouldn't hold that against me either because you got to work. That's what you do. You got to get ahead, and that's important. So I think most people or most families, it would have made you feel guilty.
White people. Maybe white people. Sorry, white person. white Tom. But
because
Tom.
I think that's a horrible thing to do to someone.
Yeah, I feel like I'm very lucky because a lot of the reason I'm so opinionated and I have these feelings about marriage and freedom and ambition is because of my parents. I'm really, really grateful for the fact that, I'm the kid of two immigrants. And that was the time when my parents came to this country, 60s, 70s, was really the first wave of Indians coming to this country. So right now, if you look at the Indians in this country, like this was the oldest of the Indian population, majority, let's say, who emigrated to this country. So they had an arranged marriage. They were like really right. And for them to be so progressive and so supportive, and they completely, because they had arranged marriage, they're like, don't do it. Don't do it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think they always wanted me to settle down just for comfort reasons. Like they just think that when you have a partner and when you're married that maybe, you have just, you're not alone and you have a little more comfort and help in daily life. I think that's what they wanted, but I'm just very lucky. I'm so lucky that I never had to explain myself to them.
You mentioned something about immigrants and that immigrant mentality.
Yeah.
Which brings us to this whole thing with our president-elect and his anti-immigrant mentality. I can't remember where I saw this statistic, but this theory of immigrants mooching off the system and all that. This statistic said that immigrants from, I guess, it doesn't matter what part of the world, but if they arrive poor within a generation or two, they are not in poverty anymore. Whereas we have people who, for generations, have been living in this country who are American, are poor. People outside the country think of the U.S. as New York, Miami, Chicago, L.A., Seattle, whatever. Right. But they forget there's middle America.
That's who voted for. Right.
There's some people in this country that don't even have indoor plumbing.
Well, that's interesting because for the podcast, for MSNBC and then for the podcast, I covered this story on the Mississippi's public education system. And I'm from India. I'm from a third world country. And I went to Mississippi on 2 separate occasions. It was 1,000% worse than being in the poorest areas of India. Okay, first of all, nobody had phones, nobody had food, nobody had water, nobody had cars, there were no buses, the children in this school system, the kids could not afford pencils. Forget about paper, forget about books. Not one kid could buy a pencil that costs a nickel.
That's insane.
Right. We don't know. And I didn't know. I had no idea. I have nothing I can go to India. It's like going to like a 5-star resort and then going to Mississippi where I couldn't get a glass of water. I couldn't get a coffee. Like there was nothing. It's beyond poverty.
And I think he touched on something with those people.
Okay, well, we were talking before we started about, the electoral map and all of that, right? And I think this all ties in together because, so I am someone who was very devastated by the election results, but then I got mad. And the reason I got mad is because when you really dissect the autopsy of the election and you look at what Trump did and what Hillary did not attack the electoral map. They attacked, they strategized, and they campaigned to her base for the popular vote, which is why she got the popular vote, where historically she may have gotten more of the popular vote than anybody else, I think, except Obama, right? So, but they didn't look at the electoral map and say, this is how we have to win, is through the map. Whereas Trump's team, he has all these analysts who are sitting in Texas in some room, and that's what they did by going to these states where Hillary wasn't going. And what is, I think, shocking is that Trump, who is a rich New Yorker, was able to connect with people in middle America, whereas Hillary, she grew up poor. You know, there is something in her. She did not grow up wealthy. She was a regular little white girl, and her mom, her mom had like a pretty tragic story. So she has that in her where she could go to Mississippi and go to Alabama and go to all these places and connect. But she didn't do it.
She didn't connect.
But she didn't go there. And then at one point, Bill said, I think we need to go out there and get these, middle America, rural, poor voters, and we need to go and connect with them. But then nobody went there. And then the other issue, so I think my biggest problem was they didn't attack the electoral map, and which is why this happened, right? And it's unbelievable that how did anyone not see this? How did they not see this coming? They know what it takes to win the presidency, not the popular vote, but the Electoral College. And then what I think was equally upsetting, or a bad strategy now, of course, we're all Monday morning quarterback, but she had more surrogates than he did. He went everywhere. It was him at the rallies all over the country. He went to places where people say, no, come on, it's been blue forever. You're never going to turn it red. Well, he did. He turned it red because he went there. It's fine if you send Obama and it's fine if you send Michelle, but it's not you. And at the end of the day, what was proven is that Obama and Michelle didn't translate to votes for Hillary. The final thing of the fall, the whole Pennsylvania thing just pisses me off so much because I don't understand how Scranton Joe didn't bring home Pennsylvania when it has been blue since 1992.
Right.
I don't understand that. I don't understand how now we're seeing all this, but how do they not? Isn't this their jobs to win elections?
And you figured with Bill's experience.
But you know what? They shut him down. In his defense, he did say, I think it was, I'll tell you when, it was the whole, after all of the women accusers came forward about Trump, right? So they all came forward about Trump, and then Trump was like, well, look at Bill. So they told Bill, like, that's it, you're not going out surrogating anymore. So, but he, from what I understand, he did say, I think we need to get into these poor Midwestern, Middle America countries. I think he did.
What do you think about that whole thing about this was white lash? Van Jones made a statement on CNN about white lash, and this was what this victory was about. It was about white people being upset that maybe they felt neglected by an African-American president for 8 years, and this was their way of getting their country back.
I think that if that is his opinion, then I respect his opinion. I think it's very hard, and I don't pretend. A lot of people I know who are not black, but let's say they're Middle Eastern or Indian or something other than Hispanic or black, they pretend to identify with that experience. And you can't. And I can't. I can't identify with a black man's experience. I can't identify with a Latino woman's experience because, truthfully, my experience as an Indian immigrant or first generation is completely different. My father came to this country as an engineer. And I don't know about Van, but let's say, when you talk about Ben Carson, right, with the whole HUD thing and he lived in the projects. Well, I can't imagine what it is to go from living in the projects, which I spent a lot of time in as a criminal defense attorney, but living there to becoming a surgeon. If Van Jones says that, it is because he's coming from a place of it's his human experience plus it's his professional skill that led him to that conclusion. So I respect that. If he's like a white guy going around like, oh, it's white lash. Like, what do you know, dude? You're white. You're fine. So I think that it's a legitimate opinion based on facts. He worked for Obama at some point, being a political scientist, looking at the data. It's legitimate. We had a black president for 8 years.
Yeah, and there's also a segment of people that I guess got forgotten during the election, because I remember 8 years ago they were saying how no president could win the White House without the Latino vote, or how no president could ever win the White House without the African American vote. But then I remember the New York Times, maybe 3 months before, said, well, you forgot this other segment. It's the old white guys in their 60s who
vote,
who didn't vote maybe 8 years ago,
right.
4 years ago,
right?
Who are coming out in full force to get this guy in. Yeah, I don't get how people relate to Trump either. I mean, this guy shits in a gold toilet bowl.
Right, because he was there. I'm saying, listen, think about it this way. If someone's there for you, right, he's there for them.
Yeah.
She wasn't there for them.
Yeah.
If I don't see you, then why would I vote for you?
Right.
Why? You're not there for me. Your face isn't in front of my face telling me that things are going to get better and that I'm going to be able to send my kids to school with friggin' pencils. You're not there for me. Why didn't she go there?
She fell asleep at the wheel.
I think it's also this whole idea of connecting, that whole idea, which I, as someone who is an absolute recluse and I prefer to be alone all the time, I totally identify with her. I get all of it. But I'm not choosing to run for president, right?
Yeah.
So this is what she wants. If this is your path, you have to find a way to make it work. And she does have a real story that should connect with people, right? Like, as opposed to you're saying Donald Trump is a freaking guy from Queens. What does he know about Alabama?
Right.
He didn't even know the difference. He probably didn't know, was it Alabama, Arkansas? Where am I? Who am I?
Right. It's funny that he's from New York and from Queens. Like, he doesn't feel like I don't know. Maybe he does.
I feel like he feels like he's a New Yorker.
Yeah, I guess, but I don't know. Queens, I don't know.
Well, right, but he was a rich New Yorker. It's different
I guess, yeah.
It's different than Flatbush in the 70s, right?
Right, no, absolutely. We were talking before about the Electoral College. What are the chances that... I mean, they're slim. They're really slim.
According to the New York Times analysis, and written by someone a lot smarter than me. No, what did they say? Like a moonshot?
Yeah,
that's what it said, moonshot. And they're voting December 19th.
Yeah, so
it's coming up, right? Yeah. So I think there's like 500 plus votes, and he just needs
583.
538?
Oh,
I thought it was maybe that's where they get the number 538.
Yeah,
I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's any path, especially now. I think what's interesting is that. If the Electoral College voted, let's say, November 15th, a week later, it would have been much more antagonistic and perhaps pro-Clinton or somebody else. Now people are getting settled.
That's it. It's like almost done with, right? I mean, kind of.
I think it is almost done with. I think a lot of the anger has subsided. I think the reality has set in. And I think people are... It's like almost a voyeuristic phenomenon that we are all waiting to see what he does next.
No.
It is really like watching a soap opera. Like every morning you wake up,
like a reality show.
You're like, oh my God, who's going to be Secretary of State? Like Arnold Schwarzenegger or somebody like crazy, like out of nowhere. Like, you just don't know. Yeah. Like, oh my God, like is Howard Stern going to be part of the cabinet now? Like the press secretary? Like who knows what kind of thing? And I'm sorry, but some of it's fun.
It is a lot of fun. It's entertaining. He's an entertainer. I'm always looking for his tweets after SNL.
Oh my God!
And see what he has to say about
that. So this morning, Matt Lauer was like, "Maybe you should just stop watching SNL," and he just completely didn't listen to that. But it's so good. It's so, and I don't know what because he said this morning. He said something like, "Oh, SNL may not be on much longer," and Matt was like, "I think it's doing okay. The best ratings ever. It's amazing. It gets better and better." But you know who
they got a lot of material to work on.
Okay, this is what the one thing that made me very happy about this is that we get to keep Kellyanne Conway because I am obsessed with her. I think she's actually like the 10th SNL cast member. I don't think she's a real person. She goes on television and the things that she says it's like she's playing a caricature of herself. Yeah. She is so good. She is so straight-faced. She's so good.
She's great.
She's so friggin' entertaining.
She's great. She's very entertaining.
She's just like, oh my God, that's not rape. What are you talking about? They just had coffee together. Thanks for having me on, Mika, Joe. Okay, guys. And then, do you remember like after the debates when the debate when he called her a nasty woman. And then immediately they go to Kellyanne Conway and she's like, we won! We're going to win the presidency. She was so excited. And everyone in the spin room was like, dude, he called her a nasty woman. And she's like, oh, he was just using a term of endearment. Nasty woman. That's what everybody says when they like each other. Like, she's so good.
She is.
And we get to keep her.
She is.
So I'm happy about that.
She is. I wonder what she's like when she's not in character.
I know. She has kids.
She does?
I think she has 3 kids. Could you imagine those poor children? They don't even know. They think probably Kate McKinnon is their mom. They have no idea. They're like, where's mommy? I mean, listen, there's nobody who works more than Kellyanne Conway.
Oh, and all the defending that she had to do. Like, she defends him like...
She would be on television starting at 6 a.m. till way into the night, 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Now, if you noticed from right before the election and you see her now, like, doesn't she look like more tired? More like she's kind of aged?
Dude, she hasn't slept in 6 months. What do you think? How would we look if we haven't slept in 6 months? Are you kidding? And she's, she's a thin woman. I mean, of course, right? Oh my God. She needs a spa date.
She needs a vacation. So this was a lot of fun.
Oh my God. This is so much fun. Thank you for having me. I really...
There's still so many things that we didn't...
well, you better have me back.
Get to talk about. I'd love to. You have to be back. So, The Bollywood Lawyer.
Yes. So we have a website, thebollywoodlawyer.com, and on the website, it's actually everything. It has my law office. It has the Bollywood Lawyer dance troupe. It has Bollywood Lawyer. You can listen to the podcast through that. But the podcast is also available on iTunes and Stitcher. And on Twitter, I'm at Seema Iyer ESQ.
Seema, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
This has been an A1 Broadcasting podcast.